So Nightraign's network test is this weekend, and last month some content creators got to go out to Vegas to get hands-on with the game. They were given B-roll footage and have shared their experiences, all of which seem to be somewhere between hyped and cautiously optimistic. And that's all great. I'm glad people who love Souls games think Nightreign is worthwhile, especially considering the doubts surrounding the announcement. From all the footage I watched, my feelings are more or less unchanged. It plays identically to Elden Ring, save the design change-ups like traversal, character options, and leveling, meaning the combat is largely the same. I love Souls combat, so I'm relieved they didn't go in a completely different direction, though I can't say I ever really expected them to. Why make an Elden Ring spin-off if you're not going to leverage as much of Elden Ring as possible? And knowing how similar the combat is has made me wish even more they had the desire to include PvP. Invasions reportedly still exist in the form of a boss like Margit appearing randomly and chasing you through the level, but player invasions have been completely removed. It's a real shame too, considering how well this game appears to be suited for the Battle Royale genre. Fast-paced level-ups and constant gear upgrades, interesting team dynamics, and a changing landscape. Nightreign has the bones of a very cool PvP title. I understand why the main game mode might not want to include it with the time limit and focus on encounter prep, but an optional game mode feels like it would fit really well, at least from what I've seen thus far. 3v3 where each team is competing for resources and upgrades, all to prepare for a final showdown against a boss and each other. That'd be something I could really get behind. Maybe it wouldn't work with the new powers or whatever, but I'll feel better once I play the network test and can see for myself what works and what doesn't. Today, I'm more interested in the pre-order announcement. You can get Nightreign for the predicted $40 US, the same price as Shadow of the Erdtree. No surprise there, it's not a full-price game as it doesn't represent a full-price effort. What threw me was the inclusion of a deluxe edition for $55 USD that includes DLC like additional characters and bosses. When Nightreign was announced, there was an IGN interview with the director where they said it wasn't a live service game and when you bought it, you'd get the complete package and everything would be unlockable out of the gate. Because this statement was in response to the suggestion that Nightreign might be live service, things like microtransactions and season passes come to mind. I'm sure that's what the director meant when they said complete package and didn't mean to rule out DLC. I say this both because I believe it and because I wanted them to keep the door open for DLC. I really want a PvP mode for Nightreign because it's currently my only hope of escaping Elden Ring's PvP. That, and I just think it could be cool. But pre-release DLC is a different story. Pre-release DLC is the sort of thing you do when you withhold content, either by delaying development or by arbitrarily dividing what you've made into smaller, more monetizable chunks. If I'm being generous with FromSoft, as I often am, having the pre-release DLC is a way to justify a little more time and resources being spent on the game when otherwise it wouldn't be practical. Nightreign is already a notable departure from the Souls formula, and even with the majority of the assets being reused and being built with the same tools, it costs money to make and likely isn't a high priority project. A new director and concept using existing IP and assets. Of course, some assets are new, and maybe a lot more will be with the DLC, and it takes time to piece these things together, so I can understand a need for more funds. It's totally possible that the DLC will be things that were added late in development and can't possibly be ready for release, so they either needed to be cut or priced accordingly. But it's a bad look. If Nightreign was $40 with some free updates throughout the year to help keep the content fresh, that'd put it in a really good spot to usher a lot of goodwill on the part of FromSoftware. Capcom does this sort of thing with Monster Hunter, and it helps to keep their player base engaged. But a pre-release DLC is basically a season pass. It's advertising that you'll get all the stuff that we haven't made yet, but we promise it will be there. What happens if it's delayed? What happens if it's completely uninteresting? And keeping in mind that this is a predominantly multiplayer game, what happens when you have the DLC and your friends don't? Can you still use your new character? What about the bosses you paid for? This is the sort of move I expect from pretty much every other major game developer in the industry, but not FromSoftware. I'm an Elden Ring critic with tons of beef, both objective and subjective, and I still think of them as the best developer bar none. But even I can't say this DLC looks like anything more than a cash grab. I really didn't think of Nightreign as a cash grab when announced. The use of the Elden Ring IP felt obvious and didn't really bother me, given a sequel being ruled out by Miyazaki. I'm glad to see them branch out and really embrace the multiplayer aspects of their games. But asking another $15 for an unproven concept feels exploitative. It feels like FromSoft is willing to cash in on the goodwill from all their previous efforts, and it vindicates people who have been accusing them of selling out. I'm not convinced this is them selling out, but it is way too close for comfort. And it'll hopefully change after release, but as it stands, it doesn't seem like you can get the DLC separately. If you're pre-ordering, you need to choose upfront from the base game or the Deluxe. For all we know, the price could even change down the line. It's also entirely possible that it will be well worth the price and you'd be crazy not to get it. In either case, it's not what I was expecting, and I suspect it will put others off as well. It reminds me of the Demon's Souls remake as a launch title for PS5. It was $70, which is already ridiculous for an overhaul of a 15-year-old game, but they had a digital deluxe edition for $90 that gave you some additional items. It was a blatant cash grab and a really exploitative move on their part that took advantage of anyone with FOMO, myself included. I bought a PS5 just to play it, and I barely touched the thing outside of Bloodborne. But that wasn't FromSoft. It was Bluepoint and Sony. Any greed or exploitation could easily be written off as typical corporate behavior, unbecoming of developers who value their users. Nightreign has no such write-off. This is FromSoft's game. This is, in at least some part, their decision. Maybe they're being squeezed by Bandai or their shareholders to hit revenue targets, but at the end of the day, they have to take responsibility for what they put their name on. If this is the treatment directors who aren't Miyazaki are subject to, that doesn't bode well for their future prospects. Miyazaki has stated his willingness to push back against corporate overreach and things that would damage the integrity of his creative vision, but if the same isn't true of other developers' efforts, where does that leave them? And to be clear, I am not saying Nightreign or its DLC should be boycotted or aren't going to be good. Nothing here indicates that to me. What I am saying is pre-release DLC feels like being sold a game in pieces for no other reason than to subversively raise the price. If Nightreign and its DLC are already planned out and decided, there's no great reason to have them separated. I'd honestly feel better if the game was $60 and all DLC and additional updates were completely free going forward. It's functionally the same result, but acts as a much more earnest and inviting model. And when having them separate has the potential to split the player base, that's a concerning move. I don't know for sure that it will, but it's not exactly instilling confidence. I guess if the additional content is valid so long as at least one player has it, that'd make me feel a lot better, but I'm worried that won't be the case. But I don't want to blow this out of proportion either. This doesn't change much for me, and I will be buying the Deluxe Edition because I have terrible FOMO with anything Souls, but it does make me question Nightreign's sincerity a little bit. I was really hoping they'd come out swinging and do nothing except surprise me with their dedication to this spin-off, but I suppose only time will tell how we should really feel. I'm curious to hear how you guys are feeling about all this, so let me know in the comments. Does Nightreign's Deluxe Edition rub you the wrong way, or is the hype too strong for anything else to matter? Am I crazy for thinking this is a weird move, or am I just saying what we're all thinking? And I'd appreciate it if we can keep our critiques and complaints constructive. Nightreign is full of unknown unknowns, things we don't know that we don't know. And good luck to everyone participating in the network test this weekend. I'll be on PS5 and trying to play as much as I can, so maybe I'll see you there. Like the video if you liked it and subscribe for more. Until next time, thank you for watching.